This is a comparison video of a couple of Spyderco Caly 3s. One of these is a factory real one, OEM, and one is a Chinese counterfeit. The one on the left is the real box, and the one on the right is the counterfeit box. I don't want to get into a lot of time trying to read tea leaves on the boxes, but I'll point out a few things about these boxes and about boxes in general. One of the places that the Chinese boxes often get the boxes wrong will be in these gradients at the ends. Sometimes they come down and they're almost all black in here. They just don't go gradient across here. You can see there's a little difference, and it could be, could be anything. This is the clone on the left and the real on the right. You can see that this white part of this swoosh down through here doesn't continue, and that there isn't much definition to this swoosh. The swoosh should go all the way down to the bottom in some fashion. It may not be identical in every box, but every one I've seen. So they kind of missed it on this, but like I said, I wouldn't necessarily say that one's real and one's not just because of the swoosh, because there's variation in factory boxes. The other thing is, typically there's a little difference in the reds. I would say that the Spyderco, or the fake Spyderco boxes, are a little brighter. They're a little lighter. It's a deeper blood red on the real Spyderco boxes. Another thing, but I wouldn't really try to go by the red, because it's hard to do that. I wouldn't go by the way I've got kind of have the real one on the top here. I wouldn't try to look at how these boxes are labeled, whether the font is a heavy font or a light font or any of those kind of things. Only thing I noticed on this box, and this is the first time I've seen this on any box, I've seen real ones that were messed up on lining up these lines, and fake ones that were perfect, so you can't go by that. But this is the strangest thing I've seen so far, is that every box I've seen, whether it was real or not, said printed in China on it. And these boxes, the real box does not have that on it. It's the first time I've ever seen that. So this is my focus is hunting because of the gloss here. This is the first time I've ever seen this on a box, so this sticks out. This real one was purchased from Walmart. And there's a couple things that made me look at this knife and think maybe the Walmart was a knockoff too, but then I determined that it really wasn't. So these knives are supposed to be identical. They're both C113 series. CF is carbon fiber, PE is plain edge, Caly 3s. So they should be the same. This DL thing and LK deal is supposed to be the manufacturing dates, I believe. A lot of people make a lot of the fact that on some boxes the barcode comes down and touches the Arabic numerals, like it does on the one on top, which is the factory box. But I've seen Chinese boxes that do this also, and I've seen factory boxes that were like this, that the barcodes don't come down. You got to remember, this is just a printer, a roll of these labels that are done on a printer. That's basically, they're whipped off and stuck on these boxes. So that's just printer setup. I would not pay any heed to whether the barcode is one way or the other. These barcodes are identical. I'm sure if I scanned them, they would both come up to this serial number. I looked at the bars on them. I haven't scanned them yet. I usually do that. But I think they'll scan the same just by looking at the way the bars are laid out. With that being said, I'll go into the knives here and show you what I noticed about the inside of the boxes, which is more important than the outside usually. I don't have the bubble wrap. This is the fake. It came in. It was a bubble wrap that looked like it had been in the back of a machine shop on a corrugated shelf someplace for about 3 years, and was covered. It was just kind of a dusty looking thing. Doesn't look like it had just been pulled off of a roll. It was the strangest thing. I got two of these fake Caly 3s, and they both had the same bubble wrap pouch, which is usually what a lot of Spydercos come in, the nicer ones especially. They'll come in like a bubble wrap pouch that's got a flap on it. These came in that bubble wrap pouch, which is unusual for the knockoff knives, but it was just this nasty, it was very strange looking. It wasn't clean plastic. It was kind of dingy looking. Somehow I misplaced that, so I don't have that to show you. So I put the knife down. This is the real Caly 3, which I got today. Came in one of these thin wrappers, which is a lot of times is characteristic of Chinese knives, but Spyderco does this too. Usually they're a little better quality than this. So this is another thing made me like say, I've seen Spydercos come in these things, but I was kind of amazed. Each knife is made in different places. These are supposed to be Japanese knives, so there's, they can be just whatever. The real one and a couple of the real Spydercos I've got lately haven't come with any kind of anything else, any kind of inserts in them. But one of the things that the real ones almost always have that I've seen, never seen this fail, is that the foam does not fit the box. There's always a little space. Even if it's a small Dragonfly box, you know, it's going to have a space in there where the foam just doesn't quite fit. And the foam will be pretty thick. You won't be able to see through it usually on the real Spydercos. This has that space. Sort of makes me think that this is a genuine knife. There's some other reasons why I arrived at the conclusion that it was genuine. So here's the fake. And the fake, they've got this insert, the education insert. I don't know if I accidentally got this in the box wrong or something, but it's for an Enduro. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. A lot of times the militaries will have a paramilitary insert in there. So this is like cheap printer paper. I wouldn't pay much attention to that either. This is what I would pay attention to, though. So far I've seen this, is that if you look at these foams, this is the fake. And you see the foam is actually on this one is a little bit oversized. It definitely, most of them fit like perfectly. There's no space. Up next to the real one, you can see this space up at the top where the foam is just not quite as big as the box bottom. And so this foam on the Chinese knockoff is. To me, that's one of the quickest ways to open up a box and say, what's going on there? If the foam fits perfectly or is slightly oversized, I would look very careful at the knife that it's a Chinese knockoff. So we'll go on to the knives here. I'll put the Chinese knockoff on the top here and the real one on the bottom. And this is the real carbon fiber combination edge. I'm going to bring in another knife at this point too, which is for comparison purposes. This is a 3.5 Caly. These are 3s. Only difference being a little bit different. They're basically the same knife setup, only difference being the length of the blade. God, I'm already 20 minutes into this. Got to go. So this one's carbon fiber. The carbon fiber on this real knife, I noticed, you know, it's got a lot of machine marks in it. I was kind of amazed at that. It's very smooth, but I don't know if you can appreciate on the surface of that there's sand marks on there. It's just, I don't know if they wanted to leave it a little rough or what. I don't know, very strange. The rivets are almost flush feeling. They barely stick up above the knife. This is a very important. I'm having to do this video twice because I messed up the first one with no audio. So you can see that rivet is barely sticking up. If you rub your finger on it, it almost feels flush. Also that the metal layers in the back plane of the knife there's no spacing on them. They're very close. It's got this buoyed dent on there. You pick it up, it feels very thin and svelte in your hand, like a gentleman's folding knife, which is what it's supposed to be. The action on it is very smooth. It's a combination blade of ZDP 189 and 420J sandwich. And it's got a typical Spyderco kind of grind on it. Very well done. You know, guy who ground this blade knew what he was doing. Spyderco logo. No matter which angle you turn it, it doesn't fade to some kind of ghost. Jumps out at you. As opposed to this knife, which is the Chinese knockoff. You pick it up, it feels like a block. It is considerably thicker, and I'm going to show you the real Caly 3.5 here. It is considerably thicker. The G10 is double the thickness. So this is a Caly 3.5 real knife, and this is the Chinese 3. And there's just a considerable difference in how thick these knives feel to your hand and how thick this G10 is. I didn't measure this metal to see if that's actually thicker or not. I'm not sure it is, but I can tell you the G10 is considerably thicker on the knockoff Caly 3. You also pick it up, and these rivets feel like mushrooms sitting on there. They are sticking way up. And then there's the layers. You can see that seam in the back of the knife where it's just not quite as put together as you'd want a really good quality knife to be. Another thing is they missed is they meant the little Boyd dent in the back of the lock, which Spyderco I think does on all their knives. So you pick it up in your hand, it feels very blocky. These things feel like these monstrous mushrooms sitting on there, whereas you run your finger across them on the real one, they almost feel, they're not countersunk, but they almost feel flush. Same thing with this G10 3.5, it feels the same. This one feels like a chunk in your hand. The action is a little rougher, and it feels thick, and these things are just monsters in your hand. And then there's the G10. The G10 on Chinese knives just doesn't have the tooth to it that a real Spyderco G10 has. And you can hear it by taking the pad of your thumb and pushing in and sliding it across the knife. So listen to this. You should hear it kind of squeak. So I'm pushing, and this is pretty good G10 for Chinese G10, but it's still nowhere near. Really doesn't make a noise. And you can just feel running your finger across it. It's smoother, it just doesn't have the bite to it. So the Spyderco G10 will always have this bite. And that's not to my fingernail, that's to my skin on my thumb there. So I would definitely, those are the things that I would look at when trying to figure out whether you've got a fake or not, is to, whoops, let me get the 2 3s down here, is the shaping of the knife is going to be pretty much the same, but if you pick up this Caly 3, it should feel very svelte in your hand. And this one does not, this fake. It just feels thick and utilitarian through there. It's not a bad knife or anything, it's just, it's not, doesn't have that fine, real nice thin feel. Even the G10 3.5 has this. It feels very thin through here. Another thing I noticed on how they did the jimping is they kind of did the jimping a little. They shortchanged the jimping a little bit. So let's see if I can get all 3 of these in here. And let's see if I can get a focus. This may be hard. Come on. So if you look at how much they jimped, much further all the way up almost to the plunge lines on these 2 real ones, but they stopped about 2/3 of the way up on the fake. There's not much sun for me out today, so it's hard for me to get the... There you go. You can see that the jimping goes a little higher on the real ones. It goes almost up to the plunge lines, whereas on the fake it stops well short of the plunge line. Just kind of a minor thing. You know, the guy was making this knife and says, you know, these Americans aren't going to notice, I'll just not do the last 4 or 5 jimp cuts. Still a nice knife, and I certainly would think that this was a good deal. It's just it's nowhere near the same quality as Spyderco. Spydercos are outrageously overpriced, I think. They're very nice knives. I think they're overpriced, though. And that's why the Chinese see an in for trying to knock these things off, is because they see that they can make the knives a little... But of course you don't have the metallurgy. I mean, you're not going to get... I haven't seen any of the Chinese folks knock off a composite blade like this. If that's important, I'm not sure it is, but you know, this is a combination ZDP 189 blade, and it's with a 420J sandwich on the outside. So they're not doing that. I'm not sure there's a need for that, but they're not doing it. But still, they do a nice job on their blades. They get the grind grits about right. On the nicer knives, they're cut pretty straight. They have nice edges on them. They come sharp out of the box, not quite as usually as sharp as a Spyderco, but they do come very serviceably sharp. Here's that logo I think I was going to show you, is that if you watch it, it kind of turns, first of all, it's never super black all the time, and then as you turn it, you can get in areas where it almost disappears. Whereas if you take a Spyderco logo that's clear and crisp and black, it stays like that. I'm going to cut myself here if I'm not careful. All the time. From any angle, it doesn't do this ghost out gray thing on you, which these, you can see that's not the right color. And this is not an unusual thing for these. You can see it, and you can't really appreciate it here, but you can get it at certain angles. It just almost disappears. You can't tell there's even a logo on there. And you'll see this in some videos where a guy will pull out two knives and you're like, well, that one doesn't have a label on it. And then you look at it and it does have a logo and a label on it. So if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to post them, and I'd be interested to hear what anybody has to say. This is a very nice knife, nice feeling knife, the Caly 3, and the knockoff is, is worth what they charge you for it. Of course, it's always questionable steel in here. You have no idea what you're getting compared to a Spyderco knife, which you can pretty much count on most of the time. They're going to give you pretty good steel on their knives, and of course, it's going to be what they say it is. No doubt about that. Thanks for watching.